close your eyes and listen. Imagine you are standing in a large, bright room. The air is cool and smells clean, like lemon soap. All around you, there is a loud, energetic sound. You hear the heavy clank of metal weights dropping. You hear the thump-thump of music with a fast beat. But under all the other noises, there is a steady hum. It sounds like 1,000 angry bees. Whir, whir, whir. Open your eyes. You are in a modern gym. In front of you, there is a long row of machines. They look like robots standing in a straight line. On each machine, there is a person. Some people are walking slowly, looking at their phones. Some people are running very fast. Their faces are red. Sweat runs down their foreheads. They are breathing hard. They are working very hard. But they are not going anywhere. They are running, but they stay in the same place. They are on the treadmill. Today, the treadmill is the most famous machine in the gym. It is the king of exercise. Millions of people use it every day to lose weight, to make their hearts strong, or just to feel happy. We pay a lot of money to use these machines. We buy expensive memberships. We buy special running shoes. We choose to get on the machine. We choose to press the start button. We choose to run until our legs are tired. It seems normal to us now. We think of the treadmill as a tool for health. We think of it as a tool for freedom. It helps us live longer. It helps us feel better. But history tells a different story. If you could travel back in time 200 years, you would not see people running on treadmills for fun. You would not see bright lights or hear pop music. You would see a dark, cold room with stone walls. You would see men with shaved heads and gray uniforms. You would see fear in their eyes. The machine we love today was once a machine of terror. It was not built to build muscles. It was built to break spirits. It was a machine designed for prisons. It was a machine designed to make people suffer. This is the strange and dark history of the treadmill. It is a journey that starts in the ancient world, goes through the cold prisons of Victorian England, hides in the garages of inventors, and ends in your local gym. It is a story about how a device of torture became a device of triumph. Have you ever seen a hamster in a cage? The small animal has a plastic wheel. The hamster runs and runs inside the wheel. The wheel spins fast, but the hamster never moves forward. It runs, but it stays in the same place. Sometimes life feels like that. We work hard, but we do not see results. We call this the rat race. When you step on a modern treadmill, you are stepping onto a belt. The belt moves under your feet. You must walk forward to keep up. If you stop walking, you will fall off the back. The machine controls the speed. You must follow the machine. This simple action, walking to stay in place, has fascinated engineers for thousands of years. But for a long time, the goal was not exercise. The goal was power. Before we had electricity, we had to find other ways to move heavy things. We used the wind to turn windmills. We used water to turn water wheels. And we used muscles. We used the muscles of animals, like horses and oxen. And we used the muscles of humans. The modern treadmill in your gym uses electricity to move the belt. But in the past, the treadmill made the power. It was an engine, and the fuel for this engine was human sweat. In this story, we will see how the meaning of the treadmill changed. We will look at the giant cranes of the Romans. We will meet a man named William Cubitt, who thought he had a great idea to fix lazy prisoners. We will stand next to the famous writer Oscar Wilde as he cries on the machine. And we will meet the American engineer who built a machine in his garage and changed the world. So, tie your shoelaces. Press the start button. The belt is beginning to move. We are going to take a long walk through history. Let us travel back in time. We are going back 2,000 years. We are in the city of ancient Rome. Rome was a city of giant buildings. The Romans built huge temples with tall columns. They built the Colosseum. They built aqueducts to carry water over valleys. These buildings were made of heavy stone. Some stones weighed thousands of kilograms. How did they lift these heavy stones into the sky? They did not have cranes powered by gas or electricity. They did not have motors. They had physics. And they had people. The Romans used a machine called the polyspaston. This is a fancy Greek word for a crane with many pulleys. But this crane had a secret weapon. At the bottom of the crane, there was a large wooden wheel. It was very big. It was big enough for a man to stand inside it. Imagine a giant wooden wheel, like a very big hamster wheel. Now, imagine two men climbing inside it. As the men walked forward inside the wheel, their weight made the wheel turn. When the wheel turned, it pulled a rope. The rope went up to a pulley at the top of the crane. The pulley lifted the heavy stone. This was the first treadmill. But it was not for exercise. It was for construction. It was a tool. The men walking inside the wheel were the engine. Because the wheel was so big, the men could lift very heavy weights. Two men walking in the wheel could lift much more than two men pulling on a rope. The large wheel gave them a mechanical advantage of nearly 60-1. This was hard work, but it was useful work. The men could see the stone going up. They knew that their walking was building a wall or a temple. They were not walking for nothing. This idea of using walking to make power stayed alive for a long time. After the Roman Empire fell, people in the Middle Ages, around the year 1200, still used these huge wheels to build castles and cathedrals. You can see drawings of them in old books. But treadmills were not just for big construction projects. They were also for the farm. In the 1800s, before electricity was common on farms, farmers had a lot of hard chores. They needed to churn butter. They needed to wash clothes. They needed to grind grain. These jobs took a long time and made your arms very tired. So, farmers used small treadmills. They had big treadmills for horses. A horse would walk on a flat belt made of wood slats. The moving belt would turn a gear, which would power a machine to cut wood or thresh wheat. But they also had small treadmills for smaller animals. They had treadmills for sheep, goats, and dogs. Imagine a large dog, like a sheepdog. The farmer puts the dog on a small wooden treadmill. The dog walks. The treadmill spins. The spinning motion turns a belt that is connected to a washing machine or a butter churn. The dog is working. The dog is helping the family wash their clothes. This was called dog power. Companies like the Vermont Farm Machine Company sold these machines in the 1880s. For thousands of years, the treadmill was a helpful machine. It was a muscle-powered engine. It helped humans and animals do work. But there is an important difference between these old machines and the one in your gym. In the Roman crane, the men walked inside the wheel. In the dog treadmill, the dog walked to do a job. The work had a clear goal. The job had an end. When the butter was churned, the dog could stop. This changed in the 19th century. The world was changing, and in England, there was a problem with crime. The government wanted a way to punish prisoners. They wanted a way to make them work hard. But they did not want to pay them. This is where the story turns dark. The treadmill was about to change from a tool of help into a tool of harm. The year is 1818. We are in England. The long wars with Napoleon are over. The soldiers have come home, but the economy is bad. There are not enough jobs for everyone. Many men are poor and hungry. When men have no work and no food, they sometimes steal. They steal bread to eat. They steal clothes to stay warm. Because of this, the prisons are full. At this time, people had a very specific idea about crime. They believed that crime was caused by idleness. Idleness means being lazy. They thought that if a man was not working, he would do bad things. There is an old saying, "The devil finds work for idle hands." So, the leaders of the prisons had a goal. They wanted to reform the prisoners. To reform means to change someone for the better. They believed that hard, boring work was the cure for crime. If they could make the prisoners work very hard, the prisoners would learn habits of industry. But there was a problem. In the prisons, there was not much to do. The prisoners sat around in the yard. They talked. They played cards. They slept. One day, a man named Sir William Cubitt visited a prison in the town of Bury St. Edmunds in Suffolk, England. William Cubitt was a clever engineer. He came from a family of millwrights. A millwright is a person who builds mills, machines that grind corn. Cubitt understood gears, wheels, and physics. Cubitt looked at the prisoners lying on the ground. He saw them doing nothing. He felt angry. He thought it was wrong for these criminals to be relaxing while honest people were working hard outside. The jailer said to Cubitt, "I wish you could suggest some mode of employing these fellows. Could anything like a wheel become available?" Cubitt went to his workshop. He started to draw. He thought about the old Roman treadwheels, but he did not want men to walk inside the wheel. That was too easy. He wanted something harder. He designed a giant wheel. But this wheel was long, like a cylinder or a rolling pin. On the outside of this cylinder, he put long wooden steps. The steps went all the way around the wheel. He designed it so that men would stand on the outside of the wheel. They would hold onto a wooden handrail at the top. As they stepped on a stair, their weight would push the wheel down. This would bring the next step to their foot. They would have to step up again, and again, and again. It was like walking up a staircase. But this staircase never ended. As soon as you stepped up, the step moved down. Cubitt called it the everlasting staircase. Cubitt called his invention the treadwheel. He showed his idea to the prison bosses. They loved it. They thought it was perfect. Why did they like it so much? It was hard. Climbing stairs is much harder than walking on flat ground. It takes a lot of energy. It was fair. The jailers could count how many times the wheel turned. They knew exactly how much work each prisoner did. It was silent. It stopped the prisoners from talking and planning escapes. Cubitt's invention was quickly built. The first one was installed at Bury St. Edmunds in 1819. Soon, another famous prison got one, the Brixton House of Correction in London. The treadmill was born. But no one was wearing running shoes. No one was listening to music. They were wearing heavy boots. And they were trapped. Let us look closely at this scary machine. Imagine you are a prisoner in London in 1824. You are taken into a large courtyard with high walls. In the center stands a massive machine. It is made of wood and iron. The wheel is huge. It is about 6 feet tall and very long. You see 24 men on the wheel. They are standing side by side in a long line, but they cannot see each other. Between each man, there is a wooden wall or partition. This is to stop you from talking. You are alone in your little box. You can only see the wooden wall in front of your face. You can only see the spinning wood below your feet. The sound is terrifying. Creak, thump. Creak, thump. The heavy wooden wheel groans as it turns. You hear the heavy boots of the men hitting the wood steps. A guard shouts at you. You step onto the wheel. You grab the handrail. The wheel is moving. You must lift your leg high. You step up. The wheel turns. You step up again. If you stop, you will fall. The steps have sharp edges. If you slip, your shins will hit the hard wood. It will hurt very much. It might break your leg, so you keep stepping. William Cubitt designed the treadmill to do work. He was an engineer, and he wanted the energy to be useful. In some prisons, the giant wheel was connected to gears. These gears turned heavy millstones. The millstones ground corn into flour to make bread. This is why it was called a treadmill. The prisoners were milling grain. In other prisons, the wheel was connected to a pump. The prisoners pumped water from a well for the prison to use. But there was a big problem. Sometimes there was no corn to grind. Sometimes the water tank was full. But the prisoners still had to be punished. The guards did not want them to rest just because the work was done. So the engineers added a special device. It was a giant fan. It looked like a windmill fan. It was placed on the roof or in the courtyard. When the prisoners walked, the wheel turned the fan. The fan spun in the air. The air pushed back against the fan blades. This created resistance. It made the wheel heavy and hard to turn. But what was the fan doing? Was it cooling the prison? No. Was it making electricity? No. It was doing nothing. It was just spinning air. The prisoners called this grinding the wind. Think about how terrible this feels. The work was incredibly hard. Your legs were burning, your heart was pounding. But it was pointless. You were suffering for no reason. You were burning your energy just to push the air around. This was part of the punishment. They wanted to make you feel useless. The routine was brutal. Prisoners would walk on the wheel for 15 or 20 minutes. Then a bell would ring. They would step off and sit down for 5 minutes. Then the bell would ring again. They would get back on. They did this for hours. In the summer, they might work for 10 hours a day. Historians have calculated how far they walked. In one day, a prisoner might climb the vertical equivalent of 14,000 feet, 4,200 meters. Let us compare that. The Empire State Building in New York is 1,250 feet tall. Climbing 14,000 feet is like climbing the Empire State Building 11 times. Every single day. 6 days a week. And they did this on very bad food. They ate only bread, potatoes, and gruel, a thin, watery soup. They were always hungry. They became weak and sick. But the wheel kept turning. For many years, the public did not know exactly how bad the treadmill was. But in 1895, a very famous man was sent to prison. His name was Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde was a famous writer and poet. He wrote funny plays and beautiful stories. He was a celebrity in London. He wore fancy velvet clothes. He had long hair. He loved beautiful things. But in 1895, Oscar Wilde was arrested. He was sent to prison because he was gay. In those days, this was a crime. The judge sentenced him to 2 years of hard labor. Oscar Wilde was not a strong man. He was a soft man who liked to sit in comfortable chairs and drink wine. Suddenly, he was in prison. He was given a number, C.3.3, and he was sent to the treadmill. Oscar Wilde had to walk the treadmill for 6 hours a day. He wrote about the experience later. He said it was terrifying. He described how the wheel would peel the bark off his legs if he slipped. He described the terrible silence. No one was allowed to speak. Wilde loved to talk, but here the only sound was the creaking machine. The work destroyed his health. He lost a lot of weight. He became very thin. Once, he was so weak that he fainted in the prison chapel and hurt his ear. This injury never healed properly and caused him pain for the rest of his life. In his famous poem, The Ballad of Reading Jail, he wrote about the mills of the prison. He saw terrible things. He saw children in the prison. He saw a small boy who was terrified. This broke Wilde's heart. He wrote letters to the newspapers, the Daily Chronicle, describing the cruelty. He told the world that the treadmill was barbaric. When Oscar Wilde was released in 1897, he was a broken man. He moved to France. He died just 3 years later at the age of 46. The treadmill had taken his strength and his life. But his voice was powerful. Because he was famous, people listened. The public began to realize that the treadmill was not just strict. It was torture. By the end of the 19th century, England was changing. People were becoming more concerned about human rights. Reformers started to argue against the treadmill. They said it was cruel. They said it did not make prisoners better people. It just made them angry and sick. They argued that useless labor, like grinding the wind, was wrong. Work should have a purpose. It should teach a skill, like sewing or carpentry. Breaking rocks or climbing a wheel taught nothing. In 1898, the British Parliament passed a new law, the Prisons Act of 1898. This law was a major turning point. It banned the use of the treadmill as a form of punishment. The great wheels were stopped. They were taken apart. The wood was used for fire. The iron was melted down. The dark rooms where men had sweated and suffered became quiet. For about 80 years, the treadmill had been a symbol of terror. Now, it was gone. For a few decades, the treadmill disappeared. It was not in the prisons, it was not in homes. But a good idea, even a scary one, is hard to kill completely. The mechanism of the moving belt was still useful, but it needed a new purpose. It needed to be reinvented. While the prisons were destroying the treadmills, an inventor in America had a different idea. In 1913, a man named Claude Lorraine Hagen filed a patent. He called his machine a training machine. Hagen's design was very clever. It looked remarkably like a modern treadmill. It had a belt made of fabric, not big wooden steps. It allowed the user to change the incline. It could fold up to save space. It was designed to be quiet. Hagen was a visionary. He saw that walking in place could be good for training, not just for punishment. But his invention was too early. In 1913, people did not exercise for fun. Most people had physical jobs on farms or in factories. They were already tired. They did not need a machine to walk on. So Hagen's machine was forgotten for a while. We jump forward to 1952. We are at the University of Washington in Seattle. Doctors were trying to understand a new killer: heart disease. Doctors needed a way to check if a patient's heart was strong. They needed to test the heart while the patient was working hard. But they could not tell the patient to run around the block because the patient needed to be connected to wires and machines. A cardiologist named Dr. Robert Bruce had an idea. He remembered the treadmill principle. He worked with an engineer named Wayne Quinton. They built a motorized treadmill. It had an electric motor. It had a rubber belt. Dr. Bruce put his patients on the treadmill. He attached electrodes to their chests to record the electrical signals of the heart. He created a test called the Bruce Protocol. Stage 1. Walk slowly up a small hill. Stage 2. Walk faster up a steeper hill. Stage 3. Run up a steep hill. This stress test allowed doctors to find heart problems before a person had a heart attack. Suddenly, the treadmill was not a torture device. It was a life-saving device. It was white and clean. It was in a hospital, not a dungeon. The person on the treadmill was not a prisoner. They were a patient. But it was still only for sick people. Healthy people did not use treadmills. If you were healthy, why would you run in place? In the 1960s, most people did not exercise. Men went to work, smoked cigarettes, drank martinis, and ate steak. If a grown man was seen running down the street, the police might stop him. They would ask, "Who are you running from?" Then came Dr. Kenneth Cooper. He was a doctor for the U.S. Air Force in Texas. He studied why some people had more energy than others. In 1968, Dr. Cooper published a book called Aerobics. This book changed the world. Dr. Cooper explained that to be healthy, you need to make your heart and lungs strong. You need to do exercises that use oxygen. He called this aerobics. He said that running was the best exercise. He told people to run for 8 minutes a mile. The book became a bestseller. Suddenly, millions of Americans wanted to run. They put on sneakers. They started jogging. One of the people who read Dr. Cooper's book was a man named William Staub. William Staub was a mechanical engineer living in New Jersey. He was not an athlete, but he read the book and he wanted to get fit. He wanted to run 8-minute miles. But there was a problem. New Jersey is cold in the winter. The streets were icy. Staub thought, I need to run indoors. He looked for a treadmill. He could only find expensive medical ones for hospitals. They cost thousands of dollars. A normal person could not buy one. So, Bill Staub went to his garage. He used his engineering skills. He built a prototype. It had 40 steel rollers covered by an orange belt. It had orange dials to control the speed. He called it the Pacemaster 600. Staub was brave. He sent his prototype to Dr. Kenneth Cooper in Texas. He said, I built this for your runners. Dr. Cooper tried it. He loved it. He said, we need this. He told Staub that if he could make a treadmill for homes, it would be a slam dunk. Staub started a company called Aerobics Inc. He started selling the Pacemaster for home use. It was the first treadmill for the masses. In the 1970s and 1980s, the fitness revolution exploded. Gyms opened everywhere. They filled up with treadmills. Companies improved the design. They added soft decks to protect knees. They added digital screens. They added cup holders and TV screens. The treadmill became the symbol of the modern lifestyle. It allowed people to exercise whenever they wanted. It did not matter if it was raining. It did not matter if it was dark outside. You could run in the safety of your home or gym. William Staub lived to be 96 years old. He used his treadmill almost every day until he died in 2012. He proved that his machine worked. We have come a long way from the Roman crane. We have climbed out of the dark pits of Brixton Prison. We have stepped off the hospital floor and into the bright lights of the modern gym. The machine itself has not changed much. In 1818, it was a moving surface that you walked on. In 2024, it is a moving surface that you walk on. The mechanics are similar, but the meaning is the opposite. In the 19th century, the treadmill was a symbol of slavery. The prisoner had no choice. The guard forced him on. The prisoner walked to avoid pain. He walked to survive. He was grinding the wind, working for nothing. In the 21st century, the treadmill is a symbol of freedom. You choose to go to the gym. You choose to pay for it. You set the speed. You set the incline. You can press the stop button whenever you want. When you run on a treadmill today, you are grinding the wind in a different way. The belt goes nowhere. You are not producing flour. You are not pumping water. But now, the product is you. You are not building a wall. You are building your body. You are not milling corn. You are milling stress and anxiety. You are not powering a machine. You are powering your own life.